Our adventure begins in the Australian outback. Occasionally, some kangaroos are spotted hopping across the seemingly barren landscape. There are no clouds overhead and few places to seek shade. The earth is red as though it too has been burned by the unrelenting heat. A rare rainstorm inundates the desert with water, and rivers begin to form from the runoff. Chattering flocks can be heard in the distance, getting louder further downstream. And then we see it. Today, we're going to explore Kati Thanda-Lake Eyre, the largest lake in the world that's hardly ever there. If you like learning about human and natural history, consider subscribing to the Yellow Bird for more content like this. This is the first in a series of videos on ephemeral lakes. The rest will be coming out later this May. Kati Thanda-Lake Eyre is located in South Australia, roughly 600 kilometers north of Adelaide. It's ephemeral, meaning that it dries up completely between periods of flooding. With an area of roughly 9,700 square kilometers, Kati Thanda-Lake Eyre is the largest ephemeral lake in the world and the largest lake of any kind in Australia, at least when it's full, which has only happened a few times in the 160 years since recording began. I will be referring to the lake simply as Kati Thanda for brevity, but will refer to the basin as the Lake Eyre Basin since that appears to be its official name. The Lake Eyre Basin is the fourth largest endorheic basin in the world with an area of 1.4 million square kilometers. Kati Thanda lies within this basin, and with its lowest point lying 15 meters below sea level, it's the lowest point in Australia. Located within Australia's arid region, Kati Thanda receives 127 millimeters of rainfall annually, a third of the global average. Kati Thanda is fed by rivers originating in Queensland, mainly the Georgina, Diamantina, and Thomson-Cooper rivers. However, much of the water in the basin never actually drains into Kati Thanda. Temperatures in the area range from 21 to 37 degrees Celsius, and evaporation rates exceed 3,500 millimeters per year. So most runoff in the basin evaporates before reaching the lake. The outback bakes rivers in the basin into oblivion. But every so often, there's enough precipitation to fill Kati Thanda, with the first recorded fill occurring in 1950, over a century after the lake was first documented. What's considered a complete fill of Kati Thanda varies by source, but notable filling events occurred in 1950, 1974, 1984, and 2025, with partial fills happening more frequently. As of recording, Kati Thanda is currently filling with water levels already matching 2025 levels. And it may overflow in the coming months. Monsoon conditions have led to an influx of precipitation rarely seen in the region, and since some of the rivers feeding the lake originate thousands of kilometers away, water from within the basin is still flowing towards Kati Thanda. Water within the lake is saline, since dissolved minerals from the surrounding soil accumulate in the lake. When it's full, it's about as salty as seawater, but becomes hyper-saline as it dries out and salt concentrates. Eventually, evaporation will consume the lake until all that's left is a dried lake bed and a salt crust that is 15 inches thick in some places. The hostile environment around Kati Thanda is not entirely desolate. The surrounding floodplains, waterholes, and wetlands sustains the life tough enough to stake its claim in the outback. Mulga, saltbush, spinifex, and Mitchell grass can be found in the surrounding desert. And along large river channels, permanent waterholes, mound springs, and ephemeral lakes, species of eucalyptus, including river gums and coolabahs, can be found utilizing what little water is available. The plants and animals in the basin are adapted to the harsh, arid environment. Various halophilic or salt-loving microbes form the basis of Kati Thanda's food chain. Dunaliella salina is one of the species of green algae found in Kati Thanda and is responsible for its pink color. Despite the lake vanishing for periods, there are roughly 20 species of fish that live in Kati Thanda, feeding on algae. During dry periods, these species live in the waterholes that remain, which are hyper-saline and have an average temperature of 35 degrees Celsius. The goby, rainbowfish, bony bream, spangled perch, and silver tandem that inhabit Kati Thanda have adapted to these challenges. Many of these species are smaller than their taxonomic cousins, allowing them to better survive in small waterholes. And they feed on the few algae species found in the lake. Their reproductive cycles line up with periods of flooding, ensuring abundant habitat and resources for their offspring. When inundated, the lake becomes important habitat for millions of migratory birds, with some coming from as far as China and Japan. Black swan, Australian pelican, cormorants, silver gull, and pink-eared ducks are just some of the species that can be found feeding on fish and invasive species in the lake or using it as a breeding site. The surrounding area is home to several species of reptiles, including the inland taipan, the world's most venomous snake. Kati Thanda lies within the traditional territories of several Australian Aboriginal peoples, who have lived in and cared for the area for at least 40,000 years. The Arabunna people hold modern land title to the lake, but Kati Thanda also lies within the traditional territories of the Dieri and Wankanguru. Though distinct, these groups are related linguistically and culturally and have shared kinship, trade, and ceremonial connections. Their way of life is governed by the natural cycles of the basin. The intimate relationship and understanding Kati Thanda's Aboriginal peoples have with the land allowed them to survive despite the extreme environment. Historically, they lived in small groups centered around permanent water resources for most of the year. Evidence of these settlements can be found in the form of grindstones, fireplaces, piri points, which are pointed rocks used to tip weapons, and middens, which are piles of discarded bones or shells. With rain and water, the Dieri dispersed from their camps, obtaining food and water from nearby dune fields. British explorer and colonial officer Edward John Eyre became the first European to see the lake in 1840, and is whom the lake is named after. When he came across the basin, Kati Thanda was nothing more than a dry salt pan. Today, about 60,000 people live in the Lake Eyre Basin, in Aboriginal communities, large towns, small settlements, and isolated homesteads on grazing properties. Despite the lack of surface water resources, the Lake Eyre Basin lies on top of the Great Artesian Basin, which provides a steady supply of groundwater to the inhabitants through aquifers and wells. Major threats to the basin include invasive species and resource extraction. In 2024, the Queensland government introduced the Regional Planning Interests Lake Eyre Basin Amendment Regulation, which bans new oil and gas developments within the basin, an important step in protecting Kati Thanda and all of its inhabitants. That's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed and learned something new about the largest lake that's rarely there. This video is the first part of a series of videos and articles on ephemeral lakes, so subscribe to the yellow bird to be the first to know about my uploads. Thank you so much for watching and have a lovely day. Bye bye!